Hello, New York Giants fans. Welcome back to the Empire State Sports Report. I'm your host, Adrianna, also known as New York Giants Fangirl. So if you're not following me on social media, make sure you follow on all channels, especially on Instagram and TikTok. We have a lot of fun over there. Been posting some silly videos and just keeping you guys updated throughout OTAs, which we're going to talk about today because they are officially complete. But before we get into that, if you are watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I'm going to have more guests for you guys coming up over the next few weeks before camp starts. And then we're just going to be having some fun around here. Maybe we'll even talk about some baseball if those of you are interested in it. But in the meantime, let's get right into OTAs because they're officially complete. So now what happens is the players have a couple days off, and then they have mandatory minicamp, and then they basically get 4 weeks off, and they come back for training camp. So today, I just want to recap OTAs, and I want to talk about some things that I found interesting from the players and coaches who spoke to the media. So I'm going to keep this short, about 15 minutes or so. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting with OTA highlights. So the things to me that stood out the most was, number one, Dane Belton had a hell of a lot of interceptions. He wasn't the only one. There were actually quite a few players on defense who recorded interceptions. Now, before I get into even more about this, I know it's OTA, guys. I know they're not in pads. I know they're not tackling, but just we need something to talk about. And with OTAs being done, I think it's a good opportunity to just talk about some good things that happen. Let's be optimistic while we can, okay? So Dane Belton had a really nice showing at OTAs, especially with those interceptions. He led the team. I think he had 6 maybe out of the 10 OTA practices. So very impressive. Now he's a guy who's been inconsistent, but it's his last year with the Giants, and he's probably going to have the opportunity in the rotation to make some plays. And that's something that I really want to see him do throughout the rest of the summer and into the season when he gets some playing time. So I think he had a really nice showing at OTAs, and I'm excited for him moving forward. Let's talk about Cordell Flott, another guy on the defense who also had a really nice showing in OTAs. And I know there's been some talk about, oh, the Giants should cut him to save money on the cap, but the Giants finally have a little bit of depth, okay? I am not willing to just push Cordell Flott out the door. It's his last year with the Giants. He's going to have an opportunity to get some playing time. And like I said, he had quite a few pass breakups in OTAs. He was able to prove himself. He was in there with the ones, getting some reps beside Paulson and Daboll on the outside, which obviously is a little telling. Although what I will say is Daboll does really like to mix up the players. Even Jackson Dart was getting reps with the ones, which we'll talk about when we get to the offense. But I think the fact that he earned those reps, like, I don't think Daboll's kind of just throwing people in and being like, you suck, but here you go, right? Like, we didn't see any Art Green in with the ones. So, he earned that to some degree, right? So he's another guy that I think is going to have the opportunity to prove himself, and I hope that he continues to do that. Outside of the defense, the other, thing that I want to touch on is I love Abdul Carter, you guys. I know that I think you all feel the same way that I do, but I love him and I am so excited. He posted a clip on his Instagram of the offense and defense. It was 11 on 11s and the pocket closing in on Russ. And you've got Burns, Dexter, I think Kayvon and Abdul Carter were all out there. And between the 4 of them in less than 2 seconds, one of them, they were all closing in, but quarterback would have been sacked. So I'm so excited about this defense. I just think there's so much talent there. You look at the additions of Chauncey Golston on top of Darius Alexander and, even Roy Robertson Harris. Like, there's finally some depth there too across the defensive line. And I'm really excited to see it all come together. So I feel like if the defense can do their job and really keep the offense in the game, I feel confident enough that the offense is going to be able to score some points. I don't think they're going to be putting up 30 points a game, but I think they're capable of averaging, around 18 to 21 points a game. I hope. Time will tell, but I'm excited about the defense. I know that you guys are too. So I think those are some of the highlights from the defensive side of the ball. I feel like those are some of the guys who really stuck out. McFadden, Holland, Adebo all also had interceptions. Bobby O had a couple pass breakups. Obviously there's not really much for the linebackers at this time, but they were really involved and made some nice plays. So I do also feel confident that the second year in the system with more talent is going to make a big difference. So now let's talk about Shane Bowen, because we talked about how Dane Belton and how, a few of these guys really notched some interceptions during OTAs. And the reason that this is different this year than it was in the past is because Shane Bowen decided, after getting this idea from his son, who is on a T-ball team and they're called the Pirates, he got this idea that he wants Giants players, defensive players, to focus on stealing possessions like a Pirate would. So he brought an actual treasure chest to practice. And anytime a player got an interception, they ran it over and put it in the treasure chest. So is it corny? Yes. Did it maybe have some effect on the players? Also, yes. So I think whatever it takes, right? I don't care what their idea of getting players engaged, invested, involved, like whatever it is, I don't care. You want to bring in a Pirate treasure chest? Fine. You want to bring in T-ball bats? I don't care. Do whatever it takes, because we need to see a good defense this year. And like I said, I think the talent is there. Shane Bowen has to maximize it. So I like that they're being creative, though, and they're coming up with different ideas, right? And it seemed to have worked with all these turnovers. So they have to be able to do it throughout the season. But, you know, Shane Bowen said it's important that we start on this stuff now. He spoke very highly of a lot of players on the team. He said that he loves having guys like Holland and Daboll in the secondary, because obviously the secondary is young. They're still learning, and it really helps to have a veteran presence. He talked about Abdul Carter, said he is all ball all the time. He loves his intensity. He loves his willingness to learn and grow, that he was even watching special teams drills because he wanted to get involved and see what they were doing. Like I said, I love this guy. Oh, I'm so excited about him. So, you know, I think there's a lot to like. And again, before anyone gets on me about being optimistic, let me be optimistic while I can, because if they go 0-1, it's going to get very ugly around here very quickly. So let's be happy and, you know, see how it lasts, because I hope it lasts longer than week 1. That's what I'll say. So anyway, I think that covers off on the defense. Oh, last thing about Tay Banks, because, you know, some of the players and obviously Shane Bowen were asked about Banks, and he said specifically that he's very engaged. And I heard this from some of the players too, is that, you know, seems more invested. He's more involved. Bowen said he's asking a lot more questions in meetings, which this is something that Patty and I talked about, was that I think some of the media got the idea that Banks was confused last year and didn't fully understand where he needed to be or what he was supposed to be doing. And I think that's where some of the conflict between him and Henderson came from. And now with Henderson being gone, they have Marquand Manuel as the new DBs coach. They have new blood there. Bowen is back. So anyway, I think that all of those things are helping Banks. And look, for a lot of these players, like Jalin Hyatt too, a new year, a new opportunity. And Brian Daboll is the first one to stress that every year things are different. It's, you know, a new team, even though it's 91% the same, it's technically a new year, new team, new opportunity to start fresh. So I like that. And I'd like to hear, especially from a guy like Tay Banks, that he is focusing on, you know, making the most out of this year. You know, it's something he really has to focus on and do well. Coffee break. So, you know, I'm not going to turn my back on Tay Banks. I am optimistic that he will have a better year this year. So I hope that he does. All right, let's move along to the offense now, because there are a couple takeaways here. I want to start with Jalin Hyatt, because like I said, new year, I think Hyatt, out of everyone, has really used this to his advantage. He took advice from the Giants organization and the medical staff, who told him to put on weight this offseason. Darius Slayton said it looks like he put on 15 to 20 pounds. I don't know if you guys have seen photos of him. I got to start adding photos into this, and I will. He looks huge. Not huge, but like significantly bigger than what he looked like at this time last year. Like, I know so many fans were like, his calves are so minuscule. Not anymore. So I think he's really dedicated and he's focused on learning. And him and Russell Wilson have forged a great relationship so far. They spent time together in the offseason, and Russell is really focused on communication, which has been so important. We know that some of the issues that this team has had over the last couple of years, whether it's been on offense or on defense, has been a communication issue. And Russell Wilson, if that is one of the major things that he fixes on this team, we are in good hands, because that is something that's so important from the offensive line all the way back. It's a necessity. So I'm really happy to hear that that's a big focus for him. And he said this, with Jalen Hyatt, and even Daboll said, I'm really watching them forge this relationship. I'm seeing that Russell Wilson is very vocal with him and with all the skill players, something that Darius Slayton reiterated. He's extremely vocal. He tells players where he wants them to be, where they should be. He answers their questions. Very communicative. He took them all out to dinner. So, we hear all of this about Russ's leadership, but I have heard so many different examples of the way that he's a leader, from players to coaches, that it just reiterates everything, all of the good things that we have heard about him, right? He took the players out to dinner. He's very vocal. He's involved in the meetings. He answers questions. He's taken Jalen Hyatt under his wing. They had a private workout. He also organized the tight ends. And I think the running backs, they had a private workout together. So he's really taken this opportunities by the balls, if you will. And I know there are still so many complaints about him, but I just want to reiterate, you guys, that 4 short years ago, we were watching the Giants under head coach Joe Judge with Mike Glennon as our quarterback, doing a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 8 at the Giants' own 10-yard line. We watched Daniel Jones run for 80 yards, trip over his feet before he could score a touchdown. We watched Drew Lock have 3 turnovers in one game. 3 turnovers in one game. We watched Tyrod Taylor fuck up a play and run out the clock. Like, I don't know how many instances. I'll give you one more. Tommy DeVito, in his first NFL game, Brian Daboll wouldn't let him throw the ball. Okay. So we have dealt with some really shitty quarterback play over the last few years. I don't want to fucking hear about Russ Wilson. I do not want to hear it. Okay. He's significantly better than everything that we have seen over the last couple of years. And even Darius Slayton said that during OTAs, he throws a perfect deep shot. Almost every single wide receiver and all of the starters, except for Malik Neighbors, who hasn't really been playing because of the foot, have caught one of his deep balls. So there's been a lot of versatility with the wide receivers. Wan'Dale Robinson says he throws a perfect ball. Even on the short balls, it's like catching a pillow. It's thrown perfect. Darius Slayton said he doesn't think he's missed a single deep shot. There's maybe been one the entire OTAs so far, 10 different practices. So I know it's OTAs and I know there's no pads, but like I said, I just think we're heading in the right direction. And these are the things that I think it's fair to be optimistic about, that he can still throw a deep ball, that he's not afraid to pull the trigger, that he's getting this offense whipped into shape so we don't have any stupid ass penalties this year, which I'm sure we're going to have a couple, but hopefully they're significantly less. He's building team bonding, which is so important. Every single player has talked about how there's a new type of energy in the building and on the field this year, that they all have one goal, which is to win games. And I know it's all hunky-dory right now. We need to see it on the field. I know that. But I still feel like there are a lot of good things that came out of OTAs. Now, obviously, we have to see it continue. So the last thing about Daboll too is that he said that he always asks players for input. And one thing that Russ Wilson said is that he prefers 7-on-7s. So that's what they did. They added in more 7-on-7s this year during OTAs. He also said that they have spent a lot of time doing more competitive periods. Essentially, during these 7-on-7 periods, they are treating it like it's an actual game. Obviously, outside of the tackling, they're not allowed to tackle because of the NFLPA. So, when they're doing 2-minute drills, or they're going through red zone or third downs or anything like that, it's been really competitive. It's been tough. And, Daboll has taken in all of this stuff to focus on making this year better. And those are some of the things that he did. So I think it's great. Like I said, I hope it translates to wins. Lastly, let's just talk about a couple things that the players said to the media that I thought were interesting. Number one, Darius Slayton said that the reason that he changed his number was that he always just wanted to be under number 20, and 18 was the best bet for him. He was between 18, 19, and 2. And then after Russ signed and Banks took 2 and Winston took 19, he took 18. He said that, he came back to the Giants because he did get these other offers, but he just felt like, he really wanted to be here with this team. He loves the team. He loves the organization, and he was happy to come back. And, even Daboll said that he's got a really great attitude. He's been through a lot of adversity and he's always been disciplined. He prepares the same way and maintains a good attitude. So I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Darius Slayton. The only thing I hear is that fans complain that he drops balls. And outside of that, there's no other complaints about him, which I think he's going to have a lot less drops this year when he's got a quarterback who's accurate and can get the ball in his hands. So excited about Darius Slayton. I think he's going to have a hell of a year this year. And I think he's a good flex option at wide receiver in your fantasy drafts. Just saying. Okay. Tyrone Tracy, something that I loved that he said is that he's said he feels like he needs to focus on consistency, that he wasn't consistent last year. And one of the ways that he's been doing that is working on ball security. He bought a hand gripper off of Amazon. He squeezes it every single night to help reduce the turnovers. That's something that he's really focused on doing this year. Paulson Adebo said he's healthy, coming back from rehab strong. He's happy to be in the building, feels like they have a good team, a good organization. He likes what Shane Bowen is doing. And he said that they have really good communication among the defense as well. And he's really excited, feels like he's surrounded by a lot of talent and has a lot of good things to say about this team. I just realized the one thing I didn't talk about was Jackson Dart. So I want to talk about him very quickly, and Jameis Winston, because if you guys didn't listen to Darius Slayton's press conference from a couple days ago, it's hysterical. I'm sure you've all seen the clip. But Darius is saying that, he's asked about Jameis Winston, and he says, he's great. He has a really unique ability to be professional and focused on football, but at the same time also be really light and have a good energy. And the big example he gave was they're out there, they're talking about a slant, and then all of a sudden they're talking about Kentucky Fried Chicken because Jameis Winston brought it up, and then 1 second later they're back to the slant conversation. So, you hear little things like that, and it just feels like there's a different sense of lightness and funness. Again, needs to translate to wins. So Jackson Dart has also been up or down throughout camp. Now, I'm not worried about that. I don't think anyone should be worried about that. He's a rookie. He's probably not going to play this year. He has a lot to learn. Darius Slayton even reiterated that OTAs, you are basically just putting a bunch of information into your brain and then trying to reiterate it and execute it on the field, that they've all made mistakes and that they're very patient and they go through everything and focus on learning and improving from them. So I'm not worried that Jackson Dart threw 2 interceptions during OTAs, okay? Because for all we know that the defensive player made a hell of a play. For all we know, it was a horrible throw and he just had a bad day. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not worried about that. And I don't think anyone else should be either. And he did get a lot of reps with the twos, which I think is great. Like I said, we know that Daboll kind of moves guys around. I don't know if it's because he's really stood out that much that he has earned all those reps with the twos, or the fact that Daboll's switching it up and wants to see how he does with, I don't even know who's a 2, like Jalen Hyatt and Cam Scattaboo and some of the offensive linemen versus, always being in with the starting 5 offensive linemen and Tyrone Tracy and Singletary and Malik Neighbors. They got to see how he does with other players. So Jameis Winston has also had reps with the 1s, 2s, and 3s. So Tommy DeVito, I think, is the only quarterback who hasn't gotten reps with the 1s, but everyone else has. And Dart has had more reps with the 2s than he has with the 1s. So we'll continue to monitor that throughout training camp. So with that being said, training camp starts July 23rd. It usually runs for about 2 weeks, and about 10 or so of those practices are open to the public. I will share on here when there's more dates about the tickets being available, how to get them, etc. They are free, but if you want to go, you have to reserve them in advance. So keep that in mind. But I'm super excited for training camp. In the meantime, we're going to have basically 4 weeks where there's no football and not much to discuss. So let me know what you guys want to see in the comments. I am working through my homework of learning really how to watch film and how to analyze it correctly. So I think I'm going to try and get Bobby Skinner on because I've been watching a lot of his Jackson Dart videos. So I'm sure he's a guy that you would like to see. I think I'm going to have Art Stapleton on. So if there's anyone else that you would like to see on the pod, let me know, and I will do my best to get them on over the next couple of weeks. And we will just talk through all things Giants or whatever else everyone wants to talk about until Giants football is back. So make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all things Giants, and we'll be back next week.